Good morning. Well, the biggest aspect of this bill is the no-fault eviction, because that means that tenants no longer will suddenly be evicted with 2 months' notice, which is what has been happening up until now. And to give a scale of this, the housing charity Shelter say over the last 3 years, 200,000 people have been served with this no-fault eviction, which has mean when a landlord doesn't have to give a reason to evict somebody. And of course, that means for a family that's an incredibly distressing situation with only 2 months to find a new property. So I think this has been really welcomed by a lot of charities today, although many will also say that this is long overdue, because this was something Theresa May made a commitment to back in 2019. So I think that's the most important aspect of what we're going to see from the paper today. The second is the government's commitment to tackle unfit homes. About 21% of homes in the private rental sector are unfit. And what the government wants to do is impose a minimum standard across the private rental sector. Now, we already have this in social housing. It's called the Decent Home Standard, and they want to apply that to the private sector as well. But the problem is this minimum standard, the Decent Home Standard, is currently being reviewed by the government, and many argue it's not fit for purpose. So I think there's a few questions in the devil of the detail there. And then thirdly, the bill should also make the complaints procedure easier for both tenants and landlords, so that things shouldn't escalate and go to court unnecessarily. Eddie Hughes is the Minister for Housing and Rough Sleeping, and this is what he had to say on the matter.
There will be an ombudsman, so that there will be an independent party that can resolve disputes between tenants and landlords without having to go for legal recourse. That should make it quicker and easier for those disputes to be resolved. But I say that abolishing Section 21 means that tenants will be able to report complaints to their landlord, safe in the knowledge that that landlord won't be able to evict them just because they've complained about the condition of their property. And I think that's vital to strengthening the hand of the tenant.
That's Eddie Hughes speaking there. And then finally, it's very good news if you like your cats and dogs, because it'll be a lot easier for you to have a pet when you're renting. A landlord can't just make a blanket ban. They have to look at your application for a pet, which will be good news for a lot of tenants.
Alice, great news for a lot of tenants, for renters, but perhaps not great news for landlords.
Yeah, it's interesting. The National Residential Landlords Association have said it's government actions which have led to a shortage of supply at a very time that there's increased demand, and therefore you've got a lot of landlords who are leaving the sector. They're selling properties, and that's increasing rent prices as well. And I think the important thing, the backdrop to all of this, is we have a massive housing crisis. The government has committed to building 300,000 new homes a year. They've admitted they're not on target with that. So I think the question really is when we have such a lot of demand from so many people, but a shortage when it comes to supply, I think sadly the power will still be very much with the landlord rather than the tenant, unless that changes.